So I was looking through my messages recently and I got this one from italki, a platform for learning languages, and they informed me that I was in the
Top 1% of English teachers for 2022.
That shocked me because, especially compared to 2021, 2020, 2019, 2022 was the year where I posted the fewest hours on italki. I've been shifting a lot of my services over to fluentamerican.com. The fact that I could actually make that transition and still be in the top 1% is actually kind of scary in a sense for other teachers because I reduced my course load pretty dramatically. There was a time where I was teaching about 160, 170, 180 separate lessons per month on the platform, and that number has gone down to as few as 40 to 50. By the way, if you're a student or a teacher who uses these sorts of services, I would love to know your experiences in the comments. One of the dangers of using a platform is that you're at the whim of an algorithm. If the algorithm just decides one day not to show your profile to students anymore, well, that's it. How are you going to find more people? So I think it's really important that if you're considering using italki to teach or a platform like it, that you want to consider these things. In terms of finding students, it makes things a lot easier. These are companies that have created very large pools of students for many different language backgrounds. So if you don't have your name out in the field and you're like,
How is anyone going to find me?
well, it can be a great launching pad. I'm glad I started with italki. I personally have not ever really had issues filling up my schedule. Additionally, you don't have to spend time really marketing yourself. You can, and I would encourage you to, start Facebook pages, Instagrams, TikToks, YouTube channels to further expand your reach to new people, but you also don't have to. I didn't for the first 2-3 years I was on italki, and I was able to again completely fill my schedule. It's also nice to kind of just know what the expectations are that this kind of sets. You can see what other teachers are charging. You can see the reviews students are leaving very openly. There's a lot of transparency in terms of what other teachers are doing, what are their price points, what are their ratings, how are students finding their experience in general. And something italki has done specifically over the last year or 2 years is they've really worked on their community features where teachers can communicate with each other and discuss things. It's not something I'm actively involved in, but it's nice to have the option. However, if you are really planning on being a teacher long term, then you definitely want to consider these things too.
You are at the mercy of an algorithm.
If the algorithm suddenly decides that, hey, we're not going to show your profile anymore, well, then you're gone, replaced by all the other new teachers that they choose to position there. I just don't really like that sense of not having control. Again, I've benefited. I've always been able to have a full schedule, but that has not been the case for other teachers. Additionally, by seeing all the other price points and things, it can become a race to the bottom. There's lots of teachers that are afraid to charge what they really feel like they're worth because they think they're going to get undercut by just all those other teachers who are charging less. You freak out, you're like, I think I should charge this, but someone's charging, 10, maybe even $20 less than I am. How am I going to find students? And that can be a valid concern, especially if you don't have credentials that other students can see when they're making their decision about which teacher to pick. Also, when you're using these platforms, sometimes features can just completely disappear. For instance, on italki, they used to have articles. I used to actually write some articles, and then students could read them, or potential students could read them, and then decide, do they want to work with you in the future? But if they decide, hey, we're not going to have that feature anymore, well then, there goes all your work. And in fact, all the work you may have put in might just completely disappear. One last big disadvantage to using services like this from a teacher's perspective is it promotes certain types of services, specifically one-on-one type services with students. But if you're a teacher, that is the least effective strategy because time is a limited resource. And if you're only able to work with one student at a time, especially for large portions of time, we're talking half-hour, hour-long sessions, think of how many more opportunities you could have had, instead of teaching one student in one class, if there were two students in that one class, or 3, 4, or 5 students in that one class. I really think these platforms are best if you are a beginner teacher or a teacher who is new to online just having an online presence. I think these can work pretty well. But I think long term, as soon as you get your profile going, you also want to be doing things like establishing a social media presence and especially starting to create your own website. And whether you're a student or a teacher, maybe one way you're meeting with each other is using a platform like Zoom, but I think there's actually a better alternative that I think you should take a look at here.